Hi everyone, it's Peter from PS Sound, and in this very long video you will see the rebuild of the system in this beautiful Volkswagen Tiguan R-Line, right? It's an R-Line. We had a system in it from a previous shop that was built many years ago, and it was pretty good, but then it was a time to go to the second level and go proper, sound quality and loud a bit. Freeway front, rear feel, rebuilding a sub box at the back. You will see throughout how we did everything. And also a really long time lapse. You will see a really long time lapse showing how the pillars were built in this car. You will probably see a 20-hour job done in, I don't know, time lapse is going to be probably like 10-15 minutes. But it will look easy. It will look very easy. It's going to be an exciting long video. So guys, get a drink, get food, and enjoy. Let's go through what the owner had in this. There's not much to say because it's all factory locations. But he had Hertz Melee 165, I think, in the front door, with the Melee tweeter also in factory location. Behind the door card, fully active, running active. They used an XD 600/6, I guess, what it's called. From GL, 6-channel GL XD amp, running the mid-bass bridged tweeters on the leftover 2 channels. And they had one of these fancy GL 13TW5 subs in a prefab box, running off a monoblock, which is underneath that now I can't show because without the sub box taken out, it cannot be tipped up, which is not great. So that's running off the XD 600/1 monoblock, and the owner wanted to take it to another level. Obviously, this is way better than the factory system. It has a lot of clean power. You can go loud, but car audio is not just about going loud. It's also about creating an experience where you really feel like you are right there with the musicians. If there's a live recording, you feel like you are there at the concert. So he came down for a meeting, consultation, demo in our cars. He also listened to the Golf GTI that we built a few months ago, because that car was close to him and he could listen to that. If you haven't seen that, I put a link to the description and you can go and check that one out, because the system is going to be pretty similar. And he realized that yes, he needed to go freeway, and I also suggested the same. So in this car we will keep the mid-bass location. We will have mid-bass in the door, but we will check what's been done and how well, and we will change the driver. Tweeter is going to come out from there, so this two-way kit is coming out and will be kept for another future project. And then we will have mid and tweeter on the pillar, because that's the easiest thing without making huge modifications to the car, and it can always be turned back factory should he ever need to sell the car. We're not doing dash build or anything like that, although yeah, there could be space there for that. He has factory head unit on speaker level integration, which is not great, and for that reason we are going to add a module to the new DSP, because we will have a new DSP as well. I think, yeah, once we strip everything out, you will see where everything is. I think the 6-channel amp is right here. On the other side, there's a DSP. And we will have to figure out where we can mount all the hardware. But yeah, standard 3-way active with additional rear feel. And the sub will get a proper box built to the size of the boot, because you can see that's all that space behind it. And it's not even secured properly. This is just, put around that plastic trim, which is not structural in the car, that can be lifted up. So if this sub wants to move, it will move together with that. So that doesn't make much sense. So we have to find a clever mounting way, build slightly bigger box, following also the line of the back seats, give you more airspace for this sub so it can play a bit lower. Because yeah, let's face it, it's just a prefab box, easy sale, making good money. But if you want the best out of a driver and most practicality in the car, then you want to build a box for sure. So the plan is, you've seen this speaker line. We use it in a few cars last few months, and we've had great results with them. So the mid bass is going to be the STEG MSS6 in the doors. Then we won't have the MS30 you could see in the Golf and the Transporter we built, but we will use the MR35s, which are technically on the same level, pretty much the same thing. But we went for these ones now because then we can make this look less you know, shouty on show, because that has a different design similar to the MSS4. And people could ask, why don't we use the MSS4 with the MSS6? It's just all budget related, and these will do just as good job in three-way. We don't necessarily need a 4-inch, and the 4-inch possibly wouldn't even fit onto the pillars in this car, so a 3-inch will be an easier job. Then we have, on the box it's called ST650C, but I think this is the SQ25. But even on this one it's called ST650C, but somewhere on online web shops, or even probably even on our web shop, it's called SQ25 because they have the SQ32, the slightly larger tweeter. And yeah, these tweeters are kind of offensively cheap for what they do, and most people don't consider these good enough because they are cheap. But hey ho, this way we get good results, save money for the client. Now everyone has to fall for the high prices, but you can check all this equipment on our web shop. There's a link to it at the bottom of the description. Then you can find everything. You can see the specs, what these do. Then we will swap out the DSP. We needed 10 channels for freeway front, stereo, rear field and sub, but you would need minimum 9. Ideally you would have a 10 channel DSP, but the DSP Pro Mark II is discontinued and we don't know when the follow-up is going to come. So the owner didn't want to have an alternative solution like we did in the Golf, where we had the DSP 0.3S and then we used the mono channel for the rear field, mono channel for the sub. We could make things work, but with a bit of sacrifice. So the owner didn't want that, and then when considering coming back and forth a few times, changing DSPs, whatnot, then we figured out that the price of the Ultra wasn't actually much more at all. This way we actually save, and then once it's done, he doesn't have to come back. So we will have the Ultra with 2 spare channels left, but then that's the most advanced HELIX DSP right now, so he won't ever have the feeling and the question mark in his mind that, you know, what if I had this or that. That DSP does everything perfectly, and then we will have the Bluetooth HD module with it, so he can stream best quality from his devices straight to the DSP, bypassing the factory head unit. We will still integrate the factory head unit on speaker level, but yeah, only for sat-nav or radio, whatnot. We will add this extra amplifier to the system, so the existing 6-channel is going to run a tweeter, mid and rear field, and then this 4-channel is going to be bridged for the mid bass, and the monoblock stays for the sub. So this way, yeah, we added a bit of equipment, but we used some of it, and then yeah, it's going to be a whole different story once it's done. Because yes, people tell me, Pete, why cannot you play music showing what it was before and after? But copyright is a difficult thing on YouTube. That's one thing. People would want to hear music that they know, they can use as a reference. Although I always say that a phone recording is never really a reference. I know that's the closest thing for many people to figure out what we do, what these cars we build sound like. But trust me, this system is nothing I would put my name to right now. It works, it's loud, but that's pretty much about it. You know, it doesn't do any staging. It stage is probably like there, almost at like mid-bass level. There's no mid-range in the car. It sounds okay, but yeah, it's gonna be a whole different story once we do it. And we have to check everything in the install because we went through a few things. The owner also pointed out a couple of things he could see, and we have to rectify those, like that ring terminal could have had a washer underneath that factory nut onto the terminal, you know, sort out protection. Then the cables have no ferrules on them, which many people say, oh, it's okay, fine, not for us. A ferrule doesn't cost anything, but it makes the system more reliable. So we have to check everything, strip out everything, and then we will see, and also you will also see what's in the car. I promised to myself that I wouldn't show too much crap from the previous install, because then some people, especially who did it and they may see this video, then they start to hate me if they don't hate me already, right? But it's a good example for everyone, whether it's a hobby person or a professional. This is the exact reason why you don't want to use MDF for speaker spacers on the door. Look at that living nature in there. Green stuff everywhere. MDF ring split. Look, it's splitting all around. And what is that stuff? Grr, nasty. So that was after, what, 3 years? It's good that it was still in one piece, right? Eddie's sorting out the wiring because we have to strip it back. We are relocating everything from underneath the seats because there was a lot of stuff here. We have to identify what was what to put everything back. And then we have to drag power cable all the way back because they had a small two-way distributor, power distributor underneath there to bring one power to that amplifier and one to the back, to the monoblock. And we will have just enough space to put the amplifiers all around the SP coming here. Power distribution probably there, or if we have space to the middle. Yeah, we can just space it around the wheel. This amplifier is going to turn around because that was done by the previous shop and that was running the sub over there. We just had to take out the foam, that foam thing, and then that gave us enough space. We'll have to make a proper board, proper mounting, fix it somehow, and then we can secure everything properly. It will be way more accessible and serviceable should you want to have any issue in the future. Then you can get to the equipment. It would have been great if we could raise the floor, because actually the floor can have 2 levels, but he said that his wife wanted to keep it lower so there's more room for packing and whatnot. But even this way we will be able to put everything underneath the floor. In this layout, Nick is cracking on with the door card because the door card had only deadening on it. It's nice when people are showing videos that, oh, we soundproof the door, and they still don't understand that soundproofing the door doesn't stop at deadening it, because it can still rattle and then buzz when the deadening and all that plastic reaches the surface of the inner skin. At least that's done well, inside, outside, so we don't have to worry about that, but we do isolation with that foam stuff, so that way hard surfaces won't touch each other. Earlier I didn't even notice this, but look at that. It swallowed. Water got in, and over there is probably like 10 mil thicker than this end. Look. It's brilliant. People think if they just spray MDF with black spray, it's gonna stop any moisture going into it. Use epoxy, several layers of epoxy or any resin, then that may help, but black spray for MDF means nothing. Tweeter was on this small MDF piece, glued in place with some stuff. At least in your car the tweeter wasn't damaged. Oh yeah, there you go, wood. Hang on, what is this? Some thin plastic, I don't know. Well, that broke. At least there you go, your tweeter came out. It's intact. We have to strip this one out. Yeah, it's just glued in place. Pretty. Another noise jam we have to deal with is this little board that was used for mounting the monoblock in the previous install. And as you can see, a bit of black sticking out right there. It's like proper builder's adhesive, and that board, that MDF, is literally glued on. Hopefully we have deadening all the way underneath it, maybe not, but this is, you can lift the whole car from it, so we have to force it up somehow. But this is definitely not the way to mount any piece of wood or anything to your car for an amplifier. Well, personally I wouldn't be happy with that in my car. This is the part that's highly needed for any car and any door card, especially if the mid base is in the door, to isolate the plastic door card from the inner skin of the door. Because just like this car had from the first install had deadening on the door card and had deadening on the inner skin. We didn't have to deal with it at least. But you can still have squeaky noises, buzzes, rattles, because the hard surface of the door card touches everything over there. So with this absorber that can squash down to literally like, 1 millimeter all the way down, then when we put it on, we have soft surface against everything in the door. I had a car that came to me for tuning session last year, a Porsche GT3, and the owner had 8-inch dyno of the old drivers in the doors, as he didn't have subs, and he had a lot of power on them to compensate for the lack of a subwoofer in the car. And the doors were moving as hell. And of course he had a lot of buzzes and rattles, and I asked him if he could show me any pictures of the installation that was done actually by the owner, because he was great at that. And I could see from the installation that he had no absorption on the door cards. So we did the same thing, took door cards off, quick treatment, apply absorber, put it back, and then it made all the difference. So it doesn't cost that much, guys. Always plan with this. It's highly recommended. Also, we made now the spacer for the mid base from birch ply, and we have gasket underneath it, underneath the driver. We're using inserts with machine bolts and proper washers underneath these as well, so this won't have any problem with water. And what you could see from the previous install, that's simple. It doesn't require anything more than that. So this is where we are after many hours of, yeah, you could see it from the time-lapse, which makes it look pretty simple. Time-lapse is always a bit misleading, because I don't even know at this stage when I'm shooting this how long it's actually going to be to the time it's also sped up on the video. But at least you get an idea about what really goes into it. A lot of pain. I think I have at least 16 hours in the pillars from the point of making rings, positioning them, building the structure. As you could see, fiber filling it together, filling, sanding, shaping, and then milkshake at the back. Let's take these out. And then you can see it from the back. So this is, tweeter is going to be interference fit, and then obviously the mid-range is going to be bolted in. But that's the back of the structure now, with the milkshake set, hardened. So now we have front and back bonding the plastic together. We will add a bit of deadening, and then it's good to go in. Yeah, of course, after we trimmed it. Just a little comparison. So this was the prefab box in the car, which wasn't following the angle of the back seat, rather the opposite. A lot of dead space, and that's what we built, which goes higher, which uses the dead space and follows the steps in the cabin. We probably have around 1.2 or 1.3 cubic feet instead of, what was this, 0.5, 0.6, tiny little box. We don't know whether it's, well, this is not 18 mil, this is probably 15. Who knows? The buffle is a bit thicker because they use 12 mil for that area, and it's doubled up here. It has to be thin for the subs breathing, because the basket doesn't really allow much airflow. So we also had to chamfer out, except where the bolts are, where we used threaded inserts, as you can see. But Eddie was knocking the boxes while I was in the car, and I thought to come out, just do it. It's cool, you know, just a bit of test. Nice and congy. Yeah, it's definitely stiffer. You know, and we haven't done much. That's just 18mm ply with few braces at the back. The rest wasn't braced because it's pretty small, to be fair. People could go crazy, but there's absolutely no need. I understand this is mass production, has to be efficient. It's accurate, it looks good, but it's always worth to build any subwoofer maximizing the space and getting more optimal response, because in those boxes we find that these subs are really punchy. Fair enough, they have a lot of output above 45 hertz, and between 50 and 80 they pound, but when you want nice and musical response and then decent extension, they don't do much below 35, whereas in that box we will see what it does in the car, but it will definitely play much lower. All right, so now we are at the stage to hand over the car. I just explained what we have back here to the owner as well, right? You saw everything now.
Absolutely.
And yeah, originally we thought that we could just upgrade what was originally underneath your front seats and then add the extra amp, extra DSP, whatnot. But now looking at how much wiring this kit needed, it wouldn't have happened underneath the seats. Well, I mean, some shops would do it, but to me that's not really serviceable. You can't see it through, and what do you do with all that wiring underneath the carpet? It would be just a cardboard job, like most of the times. But let's go through what we did. Yeah, super tight with the spare wheel. So the DSP Ultra is running the system because we needed 10 channels, 6 for the front end for the freeway, 2 for the rear fill, and then for the sub. Sadly, DSP Pro Mark II is redundant, and the Mark III version of that, who knows when it's going to come. Originally we wanted to put in the DSP 0.3S, right?
Yeah.
For temporarily, and we would have changed it out when the new DSP Pro would have come out, but then we were weighing up the time, the cost differences and whatnot, and it was easier just to buy the Ultra, and you didn't lose any money or didn't spend more either.
No.
It was better to do that to start with. We also have the HEC Bluetooth module, the HD Bluetooth module, sorry, for direct streaming. So this way we have an alternative source other than the factory head unit integrated on speaker level, which is not bad, but you have to forget playing MP3. I saw your music selection, yeah. We even compared it with Eddie. We played the same song from Tidal, streaming in best quality, and one of your reggae songs, and oh, there's a big difference. So that's where the antenna is for the Bluetooth, but actually the antenna goes underneath the string panel because it was so tight to do anything in here. So that runs the whole system. We created 2 boards, plywood boards on each side, bolted down. You can see one board there, and then there's one right in there, and on the other side 2 boards there into reeve nuts. So that way the panels are rigid, safe, and they are not bonded with the other's adhesive, right? And then we could just fit the amplifiers around the spare wheel, but wiring was really difficult, and I had to just explain that actually the spare wheel is not going to come out in 2 seconds because it's so tight in there, not just here that this panel curves down and the wheel hardly comes out, but also the wiring over there is so close, and this is a new tire. It's so sticky that it doesn't slip over the cables. So this amplifier is bolted down at 2 points. Those bolts have to come out, then it can shift up out of the way with the wires, and then the spare wheel can come out. So at least you can use it. This is the only thing I'm not the happiest about, that it's not so easy. But yeah, this way we have plenty of space for all the amps, and it's easy to follow what is what in case whatever happens, because we never know. It has to be serviceable. So that's where we have the fuse distribution. Is it gonna zoom onto it? Let's see. So we have DSP with a 15 amp fuse, then we have amp 1, 2, 3 clockwise, 1, 2, 3, 6 channel JL XD, what is it, 600/6, something like that. That runs the front tweeter, mid and rear fill. That 400/4 runs the mid bass bridged, and then this 600/1 runs the sub. But then it's easy to follow what fuse is what. I even told to Elan that, you know, oh bloody yeah, that's on properly. I even put the fuses in a way that the reading on them, the value of the ampere, is facing up, because some people put the fuses in facing down and then you don't know what value it is, you know. Little things. Little things. I also have to give you spare fuses, not to forget that. Right, just in case, you never know. But we used the right values. Everything is running on 4 gauge. I mean, all the amps on 4 gauge, they are good to fuse up to 125. The amps never draw that much, so we have 60 in the component amps and then 100 in the mono amp. But shortly we are going to do the test I told you. And yeah, we have zero coming in, and for the ground, that's all nice and chunky. Not that you need it, but you will sleep better, right? But we will do a clamping test shortly, and then you will see when the system runs full tilt how much it's actually drawing, because that's what most people don't have an idea about. And I'm guessing we won't see more than 60-70 amp full tilt on the whole system, even if you count the RMS of all the amps. And we have what, 600 watts, that's bridged something around 200 twice. It's 400, that's 1K. And that is for the components, what is it, 60-70 watt per channel? 70-ish, something like that. So we have, yeah, roughly 1.5K on 12-13 volts. With efficiency taken into consideration, 1.5K should draw full tilt something like 120 amp at least. 120, 130 amp. But you could only ever get that if you were playing 50 hertz through all the channels, full tilt till peak, which is never going to happen with a fully active system playing dynamic music. You draw more when you play bass, like really heavy bass. The mono amp is going to draw more, but the components, if we turn the sub amp off, you know, those, the front and three-way and the rear field is going to draw like 20 amp max. Hardly anything.
Wow.
And it's loud. We were setting it for half an hour with Eddie. We were grooving and sanding it properly. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, he got out. He was like, shit, my ears are ringing. Because it is loud. It's pretty loud in the car when you go mental. So this is what we managed to do in this daily setup at the back. And then now we put the floor in to the lower level that still gives 2 inch above the amps. So we just have enough airspace also in here. Tools are going into the spare wheel, wrapped up in foam. So we could get rid of that thing that took up all the space, and now what we could use for the amps. Oh, that's going to be a sexy thing. We will have another video showing that, where that Accuton sub is going. But yeah, we put the floor back, and then you will see how the subwoofer sits in and what changes we made. But yeah, that's the XT60 connector for the sub, so now it's nice and safe, not like what it was in the past, right? I mean, banana plug is still better than nothing, because some people just shove bare cable into binding posts, like so. That was the previous box for the 13TW5 with that binding post which had banana plugs, so when you unplug it, still safe, you know, it keeps it safe-ish. But having an XT connector or speaker connector is awesome as well, but that's slightly larger. So yeah, we put this sub box in, and then you will see the difference compared to the old one. So this was the previous solution with the prefab box, right? Obviously the sub was pushed all the way back, and because the boot has that step over there, they put this piece behind the box, so when you have the angle of the seat, the top was hitting your seat, and then that's what they used to gap it out, so the bone was firmly against that. And you had 2 ratchet straps or something around it, didn't you?
Yeah.
But then this way, you have just so much lost space that could be used for the sub box, just like now it is. So the front baffle of your sub box was obviously tilted kind of like the wrong way. You would want that on the back of it to follow the seat. Here it was angled back, so that's dead airspace. Then it could have gone way further up, like we put it almost all the way up to the trim panel. So again, you had that space on the top of the box. You're not going to put any luggages there, right? Or nothing. So you had that space behind the sub, front, top, everywhere. It just wasn't quite suiting the space. Shall we say that? No, I don't know how to say it, but this is just the classic sell it quick, make profit, buy. Whereas, yeah, whereas, yes, it took us a bit more than a day to build that sealed box. You can see a couple of pictures of it. Was built from plywood. We even made sure that behind the edge of the basket we chamfered it out so it can have decent airflow. You will see from footage I took during the build. Why? Because this sub is actually not that simple to fit. And this way we doubled the airspace for the sub. People say OG's recommendation is what you need, but in reality, you know, these boxes were designed for practicality, so they can put it like behind the back seat in a truck, in a pickup truck, and there's not much that can fit there. And that's exactly why you have that angle, because it's facing forward, following the angle of the seats in pickups usually. But in a car like yours, you want to maximize the space. You want to give more airspace for the sub as well to lower the QTC, which is maybe probably Chinese for you. But those people who understand thin and small parameters and how to design a box, then normally you would go for a 0.7 QTC factor. So the sub kind of performs the best when it comes to power handling and low end extension. Whereas these prefab boxes are so high that QTC is like 1 or above 1. So what it does, that it becomes really punchy. You have a lot of output above 40 hertz, like 50, 60, really tight, but it rolls off way sooner. It can't deliver the low end because it's suffocated by a really small airspace. Fair enough, this sub can work really well in small airspace. It's a beautiful technology they created at JL. There's nothing else on the market that could deliver this shallowness. I think it's what, 67 mil shallow. But in your case, in a car like this, you don't necessarily need a shallow sub. You know, if from the price of this sub and the prefab box, which is not cheap, they could have sold you, I would have sold you a 13W3, which is a full fat, deeper sub, but you have that space. And that would have been possibly a more musical subwoofer than this. This sub is really required when you have really tight space, when you have no other options. Like we had that BMW 6 GT when we had to put it underneath the floor and we had no other option.
Do you mean tight space is called a wife?
Yeah, well, if you want to put it there, go for it. But
sorry, wife.
We were actually talking about it, whether to change the sub or not, and I talked you out of it. Because the problem is such an expensive subwoofer sold on the second-hand market would lose a lot of value, you would lose a lot of money. From that, you could have bought a 13W3 to be fair, but it doesn't make sense. You just need a bigger box. It's not such a big cost to build a simple sealed box. And then now this sub can truly play way lower. I'm going to show it. It still plays at 18-20 hertz. Well,
you want to take it out?
What? The sub? Or that? Oh, well, yeah, we can take it out, then people can see what's behind it. Yeah. Let's take that. We also reduced the width of the box because that prefab box was coming almost 2 inches further. So that way we freed up space on that side. Obviously we increased the height as I showed it earlier, and it follows the back seat. So now we are playing with roughly 35 liters instead of the factory probably 16, 18. This is probably twice as big box, and you haven't lost any space. You actually gained.
How low does this play?
Hmm?
How low does this play compared to the old one?
I didn't measure that box in this build right now, but I used that box before, and they start to roll off below 35 very steep. Whereas this plays clean down to 30, 29, and then when it starts to roll, it's shallower, and then it stays linear under 25 down to 15. So it's lower level. It drops like 6-7 dB, whereas we would need raise. I will show you the measurements, you will understand it. But it still plays down to 17-18 hertz clean. We played songs with it and it moves hell of a lot of air clean. So yeah, finally it can do it. It wouldn't do it in that box. No chance. Zero chance. So yeah, we got better sound. We got more space, more practicality. That's pretty much what everyone needs. All right, let's go to the front. Let's just show that as well, because you could see the time lapses of this madness, what it took to build these pillars. And the reason why I wanted to take the time lapse, just so people can understand again what goes into them. When someone says that they can build pillars in a day, I wouldn't be too sure to let my car built by a shop like that, because it takes time. The whole process, whether you use fiberglass, stretch material, you build up the layers from fiberglass, you know, shaping it, sanding it, it takes time. And I think we have roughly around 22 hours in the pillars to make them the way they look, the way they flow. Like I was showing, you know, the bezel around the tweeter is sanded all the way down to the width of the T-tweeter, so you don't have a thick bezel, a larger mounting ring. It has a nice flow. Then also for the mid-range, we just countersunk it to the edge where it starts to angle on the basket, so it sits in nicer using black bolts. Because like Chris, who owns the TT, right?
Yeah.
My customer, he he always comments, "Pete, why didn't you paint the bolts?" Because he loves black bolts. And yeah, to be fair, this driver, this MR35, really deserves black bolts. It makes sense instead of shiny stainless, or some shops would use wood screws, beautiful gold wood screws straight in. Yeah, stunning. I see that more and more often here and there, even with, you know, 2-3 grand really expensive speakers.
Sounds tacky.
Yeah. So, you know, we ended up with this. It doesn't block the view from the camera view. It's difficult to show, but we are not further away from the edge of the windscreen than 40mm. It's within that, which also complies with the AMO competition rules. Now, if it was important for you, but it does comply with that. That side obviously doesn't block anything from this side. And we trimmed it with a material called Milano, because people always ask it. It's a suede, similar to Alcantara, similar. The good thing is that it's very stretchy, so you can go around shapes like this without any stretch marks or stitches. So it definitely makes your life a little bit easier. It's still tricky. It needs 2 people to make it happen. But yeah, this is our front end with the SQ25, the MR35 and the MSS6 in the doors. I can only show now a picture of, then you can see what happened there. The front doors were deadened. Door cards were deadened as well by the previous shop. We just had to soundproof the door card. So we put absorber all over it. So now when it's put back, it's isolated from the inner skin, minimizing the rattles. And it's behaving pretty well. The whole door is flexing crazy, especially now with bridge power on those drivers. These doors get really hard workout. That's for sure. But you hardly ever hear rattles, not much. By the time they start rattling, then the mid-highs in the car are so loud that, you know, they take over. We put in a director as well over there. There you go. Let's put it on, then we can see how the system comes on. Oh, I hate this. I have to turn it back like that. There you go. And I'll turn the music down because we don't want copyrights. So I'm going to set up the voltage display for you as your screensaver, so you can always see the voltage. But yeah, director is a beautiful thing, pretty complex. We will have to go through it because it does a lot. We have 3 sound presets. We have an SQ, we have a boomy, which goes loud and boomy, and then we also have one with differential rear fill, and I'm going to show it, explain it. But yeah, this thing is very complex. I always say it's a bit like someone says, "Oh, I can fly a plane." It's a bit more like a space shuttle. It has too many settings, to be fair, but it's a beautiful thing. You can do a lot with it, and you can also shut it. Yeah. Exactly, away from misses. So it's nice and simple. So she can play through the factory head unit. We realized along the build that this car could have most integration. Whether it could work on 25 or 150, I'm not too sure. And Eddie was smiling and he was happy. Pete, we can do most. And I'm like, yeah, but one, we don't have time for testing. Two, if we need the most 150, it's a expensive extra investment, because it's, yeah, depending on what you can use, it's at least 650 quid to use a box just to get optical signal out of the factory head unit. So we integrated on speaker level, and to be fair, it doesn't sound bad. Yes, you can hear the difference between the HD Bluetooth module and that, but I think you also have to up the game. And if you can find music in lossless, yeah, you have it on your phone, I know, but you have SD card, you have USB to play from, and if you can play lossless, then it would sound still better than what it sounds now with MP3s. But of course, yeah, it's nice when you can have full integration and you can use the steering wheel functions and everything. So this is pretty much where we're gonna leave it. No, maybe we talk a little bit about what it's like, because you haven't heard it yet, right? All right, so now we are here at the very end, and the clamping video is actually gonna go to a second one where we have to play music, and then because of copyrights, that's gonna be a separate video. I have to break it. But now we are at the stage that we had a long handover. Well, long, this is normal, to be fair. We got here at what, 5:30? Yeah. And now it's 8:30, so we are at 3 hours showing everything, listening to music, still
Sending it.
Sending it, yeah. And we could still spend few hours just to make sure that you really know everything. I expect phone calls from you, especially regarding the director, that's for sure. But I will send you links, and then you can read and you can check, and you will see what it's about. But now we are at the end of a project that I would call like the average system people need or we build. I counted it up, how much we spent on it, and we are at 107 hours all in all. Wow. And that's on the top of what was already done. So we didn't have to do your front doors, deadening the outer skin, inner skin, and door cards. We only had to isolate door cards. We had to reinstall the mid base, as people could see from the video. We didn't have to run through the bulk heads. We extended the cable from there running to the back. We didn't have to fit your fuse holder, although we remade the cable at the front properly. But, you know, all those little things would add up to possibly roughly 120-ish hour, which then that would make the project 15 days, all in all, if it was starting from the scratch. And that's usually the average, because when I built a car, I don't know whether you saw that video I built for my father-in-law.
Yes, I did.
It was called the 10-day sound quality build or something like that. In fact, that was more like 12 or 13, because I already used the pillars from my old build from my own Honda. So I just had to drop them in. Time. That saved time, but usual build would be 12, 13 days. But yours is a bit more special because we built a system where we have more attention on the wiring, and that's a bit extra time, possibly. Plus, when I said we spent 107 hours on your car, that was also because we had to sort out the old wiring in this car. Strip it out, tidy it up, make it proper, and all those extra hours add up. So yeah, this would be roughly a 13, 14 day build, all in all. Because people always ask, Pete, how much a system is. Well, 13, 14 days, people can add up the hours. Labor costs different everywhere. In America, we know it's mega money. In India, it's less. But unfortunately, if you want to build a proper system, you just can't skip all these steps.
Can't cut corners.
And then I guess that's why you ended up here, because we show everything. We showed what we do in videos, pictures. You haven't even seen the pictures yet, but you will. I may share it tonight or tomorrow. But that gives an even better idea about all the little things, all the detail. You got the daily updates at least.
Yeah, that was great.
And you got addicted.
It was great. It's something to look forward to every evening when I come home from work and before I go to bed.
Where is my update? Where is my update? I had people who send me messages, Pete. I'm like, oh shit. Because sometimes I forget it in the evening. I go home, I have family life, whatnot, and I send it in the morning, the following morning. Yeah. And then they are anxious. Where is my update? Where is my update?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's something to look forward to, especially when it's your car. You see so many pictures of other people's cars, and when it's yours, it suddenly becomes personal.
Yeah. Most shops don't do daily updates, and I understand why. But at the same time, someone asked me why I do this, and I told to them it's because I want to minimize errors when it comes to satisfaction at the end. Because what if I don't show anything? I do the build according to what we originally agreed on, but what if we do something you won't quite like at the very end? You know what I mean? And you could also see every day, Pete, you know, if you do that, could you try this? Could you try that? Could you put the controller there instead? Or could you do that sub box this way or that way? Then people have the chance along the progress of the installation to say what they want.
Absolutely.
Is there anything actually in this build that you would have you would see differently?
No, I'm just amazed at what I'm seeing now and hearing now. So I didn't think it was going to turn out. I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't know how good, and I'm pleasantly surprised that it far outweighs my expectations.
And then there you go. You can go loud too.
Absolutely.
And I also proved it to you, what you guys will see in the second video when I have time to share the second short video of this build, how much power a system like this actually draws. Because you wanted 0 gauge all the way, and we said that it's really unnecessary for a system like this. In some cars, like we had the pickup, the Amarok, yeah, he had 2 4-gauge cables running in that, what he fitted himself, and he wanted to change it to 0. I told him that the surface area of the cables are the same as a single 0, but his system didn't quite require that either. But many people are set on having just 0 gauge for the sake of having 0 gauge. But in his car, for example, underneath the trim panels there, and I shouldn't step on your side trim panel because Eddie always tells me off because I scratch it with my foot. So I just moved it. Yeah. So in some cars underneath the trim panels, you can't even squeeze in so much because you have several speaker cable runs. In some cars, people run several signal cable runs as well and whatnot, optical cables, control cables, and there's just only so much space you can find and hide the cables. You don't want to squash the trim panel back and then cut cables, or the trim panel doesn't fit. So you were lucky that 0 gauge could run all the way down and he had space for it. But yeah, wow, we are at the end of this project and we are on to another one tomorrow. So always pushing it. What?
All I can say is thank God for YouTube. If not for YouTube, I wouldn't have found you.
Yeah.
And when I did originally find you, I must say that I couldn't relate to your builds because your builds were so grand and big. And I thought, well, you know, that's not relatable to me.
So what was the video that made you feel like, oh, maybe I could have a system from Pete?
Video.
And actually, my phone died. So we were praying we can get it back working because we wanted to finish this video. And you were saying that the video that made you feel like...
yeah, the video that brought me to you and I could really relate to was when you did the build on the... it was a Golf 8 you did the build on.
Was it the first one you saw that made you think?
Yeah, that really made me feel like I could come to you because for a few reasons. First of all, the guy had all the similar equipment to what I had. Yep, secondly, he had it installed by the same installers. And originally, yeah. And I've got to say, I had that equipment that was in here, still in here, and we've built on that system. Originally had it in a Mark 7 Golf by the same installers, and I was very happy with it. Got it changed into this car when we bought this car. So in all, I've had the equipment about 5 years. Great equipment, sounded great. Was very happy with the service and everything, I've got to say. And what made me come to you is when I saw that, I thought, well, I could take this to the next level. And I saw your pillar builds and the amount of time and effort you put into it. And I was very fortunate as well because you put me in contact with the guy who owned the Mark 8s.
Yep.
And he was very kind to let me come and have not 1 but 2 demos in his car and have a really good listen to it. And then I was sold. And then I thought, right, this is what I want to have.
It's easy to jump back and forth between cars we build or you know, people get from elsewhere. Although having said that, your previous system was way, way simpler. It wasn't fair to compare it to a full-fat proper sound quality build with 3-way front, having also rear feel, fancy DSP, proper tune, because you didn't have that. You had just a 2-way in factory locations.
It was
we started
a different
with,
kind of system.
Yeah, mid-bass tweeter. It was running fully active and it had a DSP, but it wasn't maximized, it wasn't tuned. It was at a very different level. Your staging was there. It wasn't quite like what it's like now, because now it's believable.
Yeah, absolutely.
As if you were truly there. It takes the whole listening experience to another level.
It really does. It really does. What I can do is I can recommend PS Sound if you want to take things to the next level.
I need customers who trust me. Right?
That's probably the wife.
There you go. You have to answer it as well. Fine, answer it. I'm going to cut it out.
Hi, that's my sis from Australia. Hi, sis. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
She's gone.
I'm going to cut it out. It's fine.
I think she wanted to listen to the music, to hear the system. She's heard it from Australia. Your name's gone around already.
Oh, nice. So what I wanted to say is that, yes, we need customers who trust us.
I'm glad I did. That's all I can say.
I was trying to be a bit ironic to poke you, because the amount of times you had doubts about equipment selection, what we do, how we do, the amount of times you send me messages that I didn't even answer because I thought it's better if I don't answer.
Yeah, well, I did tell you I was a warrior, so.
But you know, when moments like, I gotta tell you, because this is funny, you know, when you were sending messages, please tell Eddie to wire the 4-channel amplifier bridge for the mid bass, otherwise what was the point to buy the 4-channel amp for those drivers? It's, you know, it's a bit like telling a mechanic how to change oil in the car.
It was stating the obvious, I know.
Pretty much. And then there were so many other times, or how to wire the single voice core subwoofer. There's no other way to wire a single voice core subwoofer other than hooking up positive and negative.
You do realise this is going out to the world.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It teaches you a lesson. Second time we build anything to you, then just let us do our thing. That's what we do for a reason. So no, it was funny for me. It wasn't that funny for Eddie. he couldn't take more.
You said Eddie was offended.
Yeah, exactly. I had to give you a little bit of a pointer that, you know, we don't need instructions like that. But the daily updates are there for a reason, that we need feedback that we are going the right direction, the way you planned it, the way you wanted it. But yeah, going into little details like that is a bit over the top. Yeah, you know.
Of course.
Of course. That's the point when I tell to people that, hey, look at that wall over there. Those trophies were not bought in car boot sale. So, and this system is simple. It's very simple compared to what it takes to win those big trophies and money. So, yeah, that's what we do. And you are wanted. You are wanted. Yeah? You hung up?
I had to hang up.
Okay.
I'll call it back.
So this is it. Let's call it. This is a stupidly long video. It's going to be probably the longest video I've ever created, honestly. I don't know what it's going to be, but we have so much footage. I have to slice together, create a proper full-fat video from start to the end.
This is going to be the most creative editing you've ever done.
And there's nothing creative in it. It's just chopping it together, putting a bit of music under it here and there. I'm not doing anything artistic. I don't have time for that. I wish I had the time for that, or I could hire someone who could put the video together the way I want it and make it more cinematic, right? But then our little following number on YouTube, they know that it's about the content. It's about what we say, what we do, what we show. It's not about...
It's about keeping it real.
Yeah, exactly. It's really about that. And that's what we try to do with the systems as well. Nobody needs fancy marketing and snake oil and lies and cut corners and hidden stuff.
When you say that, snake oil.
We had someone around the other day and he asked me about, you know, Pete, what's your favorite speaker cable? And then I just replied, copper. And he couldn't really, yeah. But in reality, yeah, I don't put too much meaning to certain things. I can sell expensive cables, but at the end of the day, what matters and what people get really bored of when I say it's about locations, application, installation, and tuning. That's what matters in car audio to build good sounding cars. So on that note, this is the end. Now, this is truly the end of this video. In the follow-up, you will still see more content showing this build, where we will clamp the setup and show the current draw. I think I mentioned it before, but you will see that too. You can also go to the description, and then you can find links to our social sites, Facebook, Instagram. That's normally on Facebook you can find the build pictures, but you will also see the pictures, of course, at the end of this video. And you can also find the link to Patreon, where we are going to share the RTA results of this setup, what these drivers measure. We are going to evaluate it and then break it down, so you can learn more about these systems. We also have weekly topics, behind the scene content, daily updates, all sorts of things, where we have the possibility to share content, deeper content and more valuable knowledge over there. So it's worth to check that one out as well. And yeah, feel free to share it. Hopefully it moves the industry forward. And subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. And then hopefully we can create more video like this in the future. So this is it for now, and see you in the next one.
Bye guys.
Bye bye.